we're here, right? In the stretch to year-end giving, the final push here. And for most nonprofits, that means we're just entering the most important fundraising season of the year. And for a lot of folks that we're talking to these days, that to-do list just feels a mile long. And so if you're in that boat, you are not alone. Between Giving Tuesday coming up in a few weeks and the year-end push, it's critical time of the year can feel really overwhelming. And that creates a real challenge for a lot of nonprofits. They know how important their website is and getting their website dialed in is to year-end success. But finding time for something like buttoning up your website can feel sort of impossible when you're already stretched so thin. But leveling up your site in impactful ways doesn't have to take a ton of time. And so today, our goal is to give you essentially a short, powerful punch list that you can knock out in 30 minutes this afternoon. And so you can put your mind at ease, rest assured that your website is in good shape to help you connect with potential donors once they really start hitting it in the coming weeks. So let's go ahead and dive in. First things first, take a minute to track down a handful of your site's most popular landing pages. And when we say landing page here, we're talking about the page that a visitor lands on when they first visit your website, kind of just where their journey begins on your site. And, a handful of pages, we're just looking to basically start with those top 5 pages. If you end up with more time, great, you can go beyond that, but let's start with 5. And in terms of kind of why we recommend this, why this matters, your top landing pages are going to have an outsized impact on the overall performance of your website. They're just going to be the most popular entry points for your website visitors. And we're strapped for time here. That's the whole sort of point of trying to narrow this into 30 minutes. And so, unless your site is very small, you're most likely not going to have time to do a comprehensive audit of every single page. So, focusing on pages that your visitors are typically landing on can help you prioritize where to spend your time and ultimately just get the most return on the time that you invest in leveling up some key pages around your site. In terms of finding these pages, we are using Google Analytics 4 here. It's actually not too difficult to do in GA4. A lot of things are really difficult in GA4, but this is thankfully not one of them. So um, once you're logged in to Google Analytics 4, you're going to want to go to, on the left there, you can see this reports, engagements, and under engagement, you'll find a landing page report. Just make sure you're setting the date range there in the upper right corner to be something like the last 6 months, last 12 months, whatever kind of makes sense for your website. That'll give us just kind of a good sample to start with. And then this is going to show you the most popular landing pages on your site. We won't get into this in too much detail right now. We actually have a video that walks through this whole process, start to finish. It's only 2 minutes long, so it'll get you through it pretty quickly. We'll drop that link. It looks like Nikki dropped that link in the chat. If you're watching this on replay, we'll make sure it's linked up wherever you're watching this so that you can follow along. But again, thankfully, this is not one of those reports that's too difficult to engage with. And if you don't have Google Analytics or reliable website data to lean on here, this stuff will look a little bit different. What I typically recommend is just pick the 5 pages that you expect to be the most popular based on the campaigns that you have planned for the end of the year and just kind of how you're going to be driving traffic to the website. So, for example, if your year-end push is centered on a specific initiative or campaign, be sending out emails, talking about that on social media, linking to a specific campaign page, probably expect that campaign page to be pretty popular. Or if your year-end push includes more than just donating, right? Like some folks are really talking about recruiting volunteers for a holiday event or something like that, then you might expect your volunteer page or your event page to be popular destinations for your visitors to land on. So just think about the campaigns that you have in the hopper, pick the ones that make the most sense given your situation. And then once you've identified those pages, it's time to actually review the content on those popular pages. And with this step, we're really just looking to take a quick high level review of the content. And there's a few framing questions that I think I find helpful when it comes to reviewing content. Now, you don't need to spend a ton of time writing answers to these questions. I've just found they're helpful to sort of consider from the outset of beginning to review pages because it helps bring clarity to my review process. And honestly, in a lot of ways, it can actually speed up the review process because I'm in the right headspace. I've already sort of put myself in the right place to be able to meaningfully and quickly review these key pages. So, these key questions that I always recommend before diving into a review first, who's the primary audience for this page? Right? Who is this page for? This is honestly something that's worth thinking about with any page of your site, but for now, we're looking at these most popular links. Then we want to be really clear on who we're talking to with these pages. And then with that in mind, next we're going to say, sort of like, what is that audience looking? What question are they looking to answer on this page in particular? And asking this question can help you just meet visitors where they're at when they arrive on your page and make sure that you're doing everything you can to quickly provide them with value that'll be meaningful to them. And then with that in mind, you'll want to think through how your organization can help in ways that other organizations can't. If you've been to office hours before, you've probably heard us talk about the concept of differentiated value. And it's just kind of a fancy way of saying what makes you unique, what sets you apart from all of the others out there working in your space. And it is a signal to visitors just how you're different. And then if that difference, that differentiated value resonates with them, it's a whole lot more likely that they'll choose to get involved and support your organization since you're offering this unique opportunity to solve a problem that they deeply care about. And that's helpful all throughout the year, but it's especially useful when you think of it in the context of end of year giving when they're being bombarded with tons of appeals and asks. It can help you sort of stand out from the noise. And then the last question you'll want to consider here is what's the next step in their journey? What action makes the most sense for them after engaging with this page in particular? So, again, those are the four framing questions. And once you sort of have those in mind, you're going to want to look for a few key things as you review each individual page. So, things like, first of all, a compelling hook. Just what is the first few lines that you're sharing with visitors? What do they see when they first land on your page? Is the text compelling enough to get them hooked, make them want to read more? That's really the whole kind of point of the hook. That sort of like beginning of the page is just to pique their interest enough to get them to dedicate a little bit more time to reading a little bit more of the page. Is it written with that audience that you're targeting in mind? That's really the value of identifying that primary audience can answer this kind of question. Is it written for the audience that using language that they would use? Does it align with what they're expecting to find on the page? We really want to make sure that beginning is dialed in because that's going to carry outsized importance. And then next, does your page contain clear, concise headings that help visitors understand what they can expect to find on the page? Really, we want to avoid situations where visitors are just greeted with giant walls of text. And headings, not only can they break up the page in helpful ways, but they can also give your visitors an idea of what to expect and whether it's something that they want to stick around and read a little bit more about. And I actually recommend when you're engaging with a page like this, when you're reviewing a page, just scan only the headings. Read all of the headings, but don't read the supporting paragraph text and see if the headings just give you a clear general idea of what the page covers. And if they're compelling enough to make a visitor want to invest some time actually reading the page in more detail, that's actually not that far off from how a lot of people actually engage. Just think of your own browsing behavior. A lot of times when I land on a web page, I'll kind of scan through the headings to make sure I'm in the right place. And then I'll actually read the parts of the page that are most sort of pertinent to the challenge that I'm looking to solve. Next up, make sure your page includes something that helps folks understand what makes you unique. Gets back to that differentiated value we talked about before. Just how are you different from other organizations that they could potentially support? Potential donors and supporters are going to be inundated with appeals this time of year, and you want your organization to stand out. So, whatever it is that you do that other organizations don't or can't or won't, um, is likely worth highlighting here in some. Next up, check to see if your page has a strong primary call to action. You'll hear this called a CTA, sometimes call to action. It's inviting folks to take the next step that is going to be meaningful to them. Is that call to action clearly visible? Is it easy to find? Are there many calls to action that are competing for attention, or do you have a clear, logical next step? Like ultimately, the goal here is to make sure that folks know what step comes next in their journey and that they're able to easily take that step that makes the most sense given the context that we identified before, why they're coming to this page, what they're looking to do, how we can help in ways that other organizations. And then lastly, this is really a helpful point for this time of year, especially, but really anytime. Stay on the lookout for anything that is non-essential that can be cut or removed from your page. We want to get to the point as quickly as possible, and including lots of information can make that harder for visitors. So look for anything that can be removed from the page or anything that could be consolidated or phrased more simply, all going to go a really long way in leveling up these key pages and getting them ready to pull their weight this time of year. Now that your top pages are in good shape, time to actually test the online giving process. And you're going to want to test your process twice, once on a computer and then again on your phone. And when we say test the giving process, we're not just talking about quickly pulling up the donate page, glancing over the form, clicking the button. We want you to go all the way through completing your donation both times, again, on your computer and on your phone. This is really the best and honestly the only way to really make sure that your donation process works the way that it should. Uh, the last thing we want is to drive a bunch of traffic to our donation form only to find out later that there's something functionally wrong with the online giving process. As you test, there's a few things that we recommend looking out for. So first, does your donation form visually look the way that it should on both desktop and mobile devices? Is it responsive is sort of the fancy term to just say, is it changing sizes and layouts to adapt to the smaller screen when you look at it on your phone? And again, pay extra attention to how the whole experience plays out for folks on smaller screens like a cell phone. Because for a lot of organizations, end of year giving and engaging with donors can happen on cell phones, sometimes even disproportionately compared to the rest of the year because people are finding folks on social media, they're reading more email. It just a lot of times appeals are lending themselves to more mobile traffic. And so make sure that you're testing it pretty thoroughly on that smaller screen to make sure someone will be able to have the best experience. Next, is it clear what fields of your donation form visitors need to fill out in order to submit the form and complete their gift? Like, can visitors easily tell what information you need from them in order to donate? Are things like the field labels clear? Can you simplify the language at all? Is it easy to tell which fields are required? Uh, we really want to avoid frustration as much as we possibly can. Like it's hard enough to get potential donors to the point of wanting to give in the first place. And the last thing we want is to lose someone who wanted to give because there was too much friction in the giving process. And then finally, does your test donation actually go through as expected? From a functional perspective, was your payment successfully processed? And this is really why we push folks to go through the whole giving process through actually submitting a test donation, because that's what really allows you to make sure everything is ready for prime time. All right. And if the answer to all of those questions is yes, fantastic. You are in good shape If not, now is really the time to troubleshoot, not after. You're getting a bunch of emails from potential donors having trouble. Who even knows if they would reach out? Like a lot of people wouldn't even reach out. They would just not complete the donation. Want to make sure that we really dialed that in functionally. And then once the donation process is actually ready to go, pay special attention to the post donation experience. Donating is so much more than just a transaction. And I know everyone talks about that. Everyone sort of knows that logically, but the post donation experience, what happens right after somebody completes a donation, is a really special moment. Like it's a really meaningful moment to give someone that feeling of being appreciated and reaffirming their decision to donate in the first place. So beyond just making sure your form is functional, you also want to just observe that post donation experience and really, to the extent that you can, try to feel what it's like for your donors once they've made a gift. What happens after you submit that form and you complete your donation? How do you feel as a new donor when you hit that thank you or you receive that email thanking you for your donation? And a few more specific kind of lenses to view this through. First, does your post donation message thank your donor for joining your cause, becoming part of your movement? We recommend avoiding messages that feel purely functional here, or, a message that acknowledges that a transaction has taken place. Like those are all right. They have a purpose, but you know, it just leaves a lot of opportunity to deepen the relation. You want people to know their donation was processed. You want to give them the information they need, but feel like they've become part of something bigger than that. Like they've joined this movement that you're creating. That's also part of why getting really clear on your differentiated value can help so much because you can reinforce, the ways that you're different, the ways that you're standing out in this post donation experience. Next, does the message effectively illustrate the impact of their gift? Do donors walk away with a clear idea of how their donation will be used to make a difference? Thank you messages are a great chance for us to connect the dots for our donors and reinforce the impact of a donation. And then it also just helps donors kind of understand the difference, again, that you're enabling or that their gift is enabling you all to make in the world. So it's just a really kind of nice moment to celebrate, again, the movement that they have joined. Um, this is a big one. Overall, does your message sound authentic? Does it feel genuine, like it came from a real person at your organization? Uh, you don't need to go over the top with this, but it should sound real, right? Like it should sound like it came from you, um, not something that's just generic, like any organization could have said it, or so obviously AI generated that it feels impersonal. Like just the lens that I do this through is I try to imagine that I'm thanking a close friend for making a gift. Like if you imagine you're thanking a close friend of yours for making a gift to your cause, consider weaving some of that language into your thank you message. It's a good chance that'll really help you make it feel authentic, and that authenticity will really resonate with others. And lastly, does it offer a clear way for folks to stay involved with your organization? Does it invite folks who want to plug into additional work? Does it give them an opportunity to do so beyond just this kind of single gift that they've just made? Someone who has made a donation to on your website clearly has interest in your work. They had enough interest to ultimately make a gift, and they also trust your ability to make a difference. They are bought in that moment that they're making a donation. You don't want to leave them hanging, right? Just consider if there are any other next steps or ways to get further involved that may resonate with them, and then just invite them to take those next steps if they're interested. So again, if the answer to all of those things is yes, awesome. You are in good shape with your post donation experience. Then if that post donation experience maybe feels a little cold or incomplete or unclear, now is a good time to just spend a little bit of time dialing it in and getting it ready for this big year-end push. So again, there you have it. Like that's the punch list. Those are the things that we are going to dial in for the year-end website prep. With 30 minutes, you can find your top landing pages, review the content of those handful of pages with those kind of questions, those framing questions that we outlined before. Test your giving process. Again, we're going to do it 2 times. A computer. We're going to do it on a mobile device. And finally, observe what that post donation experience feels like for donors. Let's just find ways to really make it feel authentic and genuine and present them with a logical next step they want to get further in. So, keeping it simple, following these steps should put you in a good spot. Start driving supporters to your nonprofit's website and really kind of kick off the giving season with confidence and really with some peace of mind. And if you're strapped for time and being pulled in a dozen different directions, hopefully this helps you cut through the noise and quickly get your website ready for that final fundraising push. We always try to really say that meaningful website changes don't have to be really heavy lifts. So hopefully these ones help you get the most out of this year end